when I went to New York, was when iPhone got launched. And in that launch, it changed the game entirely. Because the iPhone store coming up there and this mass distribution of services, which is possible, it changed the game for design because for the first time, companies could see there is a huge correlation between good design and great ROI. And that changed the game for all fields of design just because of what UX came up. So that happened, and fortunately, I was there in Parsons. I started doing iPhone development during my program there. I built 2 apps.
How was that transition for you, and how did that happen? Because you were at NID, and then you went to New York. And of course, we have this great relationship with Parsons. Parsons is a founding member of ISDI.
A lot of dear friends from Parsons. Swen
Yes,
was
of
a good
course.
friend.
Yeah.
Aneska, Swen,
Yes.
Jane Perron are all good friends from there.
So Amber, thank you so much for coming to Atlas SkillTech University and talking to our design students, our tech students, and our entrepreneurship students. I think the morning sessions were absolutely enthralling, and the students are so excited with the insights that you shared with them. What I really wanted to know is, how did you choose to study design, right? What was your motivation behind picking design over all the other opportunities that you had when you were studying?
So the answer may not be very inspiring. My fundamental motion behind design was the fact that I used to like doing sculpture in school. And my understanding towards design at that point of time was that I'll pretty much get to do more of this for the rest of my life.
Got it.
And that's when I went to NID. And of course, it was an eye-opener because the processes and the methodology and the foundation program that we went through was an eye-opener that this is actually a serious field. And this is got methods, it's got techniques, it's got business value and outcome that it generates.
And from, I'm going to say this, from sculptor to today debonair technologist, one of the important steps was actually going to Parsons, right? How was that transition for you, and how did that happen? Because you were at NID, and then you went to New York. And of course, we have this great relationship with Parsons. Parsons is a founding member of ISDI.
Yeah, a lot of dear friends from Parsons. Swen
Yes,
was a
of
good
course.
friend.
Yeah.
Aneska, Swen,
Yes.
Jane Perron are all good friends from there. So how Parsons happened? See, by the time I went to Parsons, and this was 2008, I had already done significant amount of work in software design and software process. In fact, I consider the organizations that I have been through as also my alma mater. Now, Parsons happened because while I was building software, my understanding of how design and technology meshes together was still rudimentary. Because the design education at that point of time was not very in-depth in technology.
And how did you get into design technology back in 2008, right? This is right after NID, or what was the inflection point for you that exposed you to this mix of design and technology?
See, I got exposed to this field in 2003.
Okay.
All by chance.
Okay.
I ended up actually working in Japan in a company called Software, which was actually building software. And this was entirely new for me. Then NID got semi-over for me at 2005, per se. And then I got into full-fledged software building. Now, from there, my belief obviously was spending enough time with developing skills, getting experience, understanding this in depth, going everywhere from not only delivering programs, but actually teaching. So till 2008, I was teaching as well. And then coming to a point where I felt that there was a gap.
Got it.
And the gap was my understanding that I'm building something that I don't know how exactly it's built.
And this is still early days of design and technology coming together, especially in India, right? There wasn't much happening at that point.
Across the world. And I'll always talk about this. See, 2008 was an inflection point. Because 2008, when I went to New York, was when iPhone got launched. And in that launch, it changed the game entirely. Because the iPhone store coming up there and this mass distribution of services, which is possible, it changed the game for design because for the first time, companies could see there is a huge correlation between good design and great ROI. And that changed the game for all fields of design just because of what UX came up. So that happened, and fortunately, I was there. I was in Parsons. I started doing iPhone development during my program there. I built 2 apps.
And in fact, I think you brought a lot of that into the teaching that you did at ISDI, because just before you went into your next stint in fintech, you were sharing a lot of that with our students.
Correct.
And in fact, that's had a brilliant trajectory for many of those students who then went on to get into design and technology. And your journey a little bit from coming back to India and then riding the fintech revolution, because you were probably one of the earliest designers to get into UI UX for fintech.
Correct.
when fintech in India, well, the India Stack had just been launched.
Correct. In fact, I consider myself one of the earliest designers to get into software design in India, because before 2010, there wasn't much traction. So fintech was 2015-16 when I got introduced to the field. And my first introduction was payments. Payments at that time was top of the game in terms of funding, focus, and where the world was heading over there. And then I got into that. Now, when you enter a company which has relevance and value for design, doesn't necessarily mean they know what to do with design.
Correct.
And that was a huge challenge, because I went from a company which was very organized, with systems, with processes, doing design work across the world, to entering a company and say, okay, what do you actually do? In fact, I remember a conversation with the CFO, who's a good friend now as well, and he asked me this question: so you have come to a payment company, we're a payment aggregator, what will you do here? And I was like, we'll see. So I built a team for them from scratch.
Yeah.
I built processes for them. I set up an innovation center for them, which was international. In fact, a lot of the work which was done was not just for India. I did a lot of work for Poland, for Germany, products which were international, with teams over there as well. So we did a lot of that work. And what was interesting was that we saw this entire fintech field evolve over time. So payments were the focus, but payments as a focus got saturated very fast because of the nature of the market. And
Correct.
There was a lot of monopoly which was achieved very fast in different ways. Then credit became the next thing. So the funding came over there. And because funding came, there was a lot of room for innovation at that time. The regulator was very open towards innovation. There was a lot of things towards BNPL products that was built. So we built BlazyPay.
Yeah.
And that was a big hit, and a lot of experiments, and that gave us a lot of learnings there.
And while this was happening, I think the question I really want to ask you was business driving design, or is design driving business?
So at the beginning of this chat, you kind of hinted towards what I do now,
Yes.
right? And while a technologist at heart, I am
But a trained designer.
trained designer, technologist, and now I say entrepreneur, but with significant business acumen. And what I learned across this entire journey across that designers cannot be business agnostic. You have to embrace business comprehension. You have to understand how P&L works. You have to understand what is the business model, what is the nature of that business, and then how you are helping in that context. That is one of the things which was an endearing ability across any of the fintechs.
So the whole combination of design, technology, and now business, right? That's really the holy grail of what the future
Correct.
holds. But obviously, there's one joker in the pack, or AI. Is that going to disrupt everything we do? Is it going to change the world as we see it today? Is it going to put us out of jobs?
So, in the network that I work with, and other agencies, other design founders, other practitioners as well. So my question to them is, what are you actually doing with AI? In fact, I was in a conference and I asked them this question, and they were presenting, and somebody came up with that we are doing synthetic users. And I was like, okay. And I was very intrigued. Please tell me more about it. What it turned out is most companies are actually not doing much in design with regards to AI. Mostly it is either using ChatGPT for research, or it's some note-taking ability. There is UIZard, etc., that is being tested, I would say testing kind of phase. But look at me. What do we build? We build very complex softwares. We build broking softwares. We build trading terminals. We build wealth softwares. We build payment softwares. We build banking B2B softwares, corporate banking, etc. as well. To be able to build that, it requires a very high level of trained acumen of not only experience strategy, but business strategy. And that education you need to have. Now, most of that is still in our heads. If there's a way for ChatGPT to extract that, then we're in trouble. Right? But most of that is still in our head. And what ChatGPT is doing is providing, or LLMs and Gen AIs is providing an aggregation of what's already available out there.
Correct.
And giving you a lossy picture.
Yes. It's an amalgamation of what's already out there. It's no new knowledge creation.
Is that enough to actually solve real world business problems? That's the question. And if the answer is no, it's not there, I think it's going to aid us in different ways. It is going to be an evolution. So I say the evolution for me has been from PowerPoint to Figma. I started my career by designing on PowerPoint. PowerPoint to Figma, and a lot of softwares in between as well. This is going to be another evolution in that context. The jobs are still there because the human value is still there till this is replaceable. Maybe the UI execution part will go a bit down, but the still value is there because, see, UI execution is not just by putting a couple of components together. When you create the UI, that itself is strategy.
Exactly. So I know that AI will not put strategists out of business, but will AI put designers out of business?
I think execution jobs will reduce, but it depends on the understanding of the concept of design. If design is seen as an execution or a DTP-based business, where you're just executing, and it's like a sweatshop. You're putting more bodies, warm bodies to the problem,
Correct.
and you're throwing that. Then in that context, we are in trouble, definitely, because that is the business model. But where it's not a chop shop, right? The business model is fundamental value, because you are considering strategy, you are giving brand propositions, you are giving brand positioning, you are giving product strategies, and then you are creating business outcomes of people. That is still tremendous value.
Still tremendous value.
Tremendous value.
And, so what should our students focus on today, right? Because obviously they're studying design, they're studying tech. What are the skill sets that we should really, our faculty, our school should be focusing on so they're prepared for this future?
One of the things, and an example that I'll give is from what I do in the organizations that I've built and I've worked at, is I get the staff to repeatedly practice solving critical business problems, which starts with understanding the business context and repeatedly come up with what is your strategy. I don't care about executions. And they do it again and again. And this brings a mashup of business, technology, as well as design together. Now, this doesn't focus on learning softwares. This doesn't focus on just given techniques of primary research and secondary research. This develops an acumen of understanding complex problems. I think this needs to become the heart of what the education does, because techniques will evolve, softwares will evolve. So curriculums cannot be skill focused. When I say skill,
of course,
I know my rudimentary,
Yeah, but it's not about drawing, sketching,
Yes.
PowerPoint, but it's about actually thinking through the entire business problem, using design, using tech to solve those problems. And more importantly, I would say creating productivity gains for businesses.
See, and this has happened across fields. So my family business was architecture. And at one point of time, it was the execution discipline. Draftsman. I remember my dad's office had huge drafting boards, and everything was made by the carpenter for that office. And that was the work. 99% of time, they were just doing that. And that evolved. And we were one of the first few companies to actually embrace AutoCAD and actually have PCs come in. And that evolution continues further and further and further, etc. So the education cannot just focus on skilling, because then you're just teaching people how to be slightly better as a draftsman. The education has to be focused on the thinking ability. And the way I say that fundamentally their ability is about how to create behaviors with users that create business outcomes. The single line is a definition which for me has remained evergreen across eras of this field, across softwares.
I think that's invaluable advice, right? Behaviors, values, users, so important to what we do today. Talking about startups, right? You're a serial entrepreneur. Our students want to become startup entrepreneurs more than they want to be employed, which is great because I think India needs job creation more than job seeking. And all of them want to do an AI startup, right? But AI startups are so common. Are there unique, unexplored areas that we can channelize our students to look at if they're thinking of building an AI startup?
So the answer to that question, Siddharth, is that why are people focusing on AI startups? Is it the reason that the maximum funding is flowing in this area, and this is what is exciting people about it? Or is it the fact that you are truly trying to create a novel solution which creates value? If your plan is that you want to create that unique novel solution which creates value, then focus on that.
Yeah.
Then it's technology agnostic. And then you go look at behaviors, you go look at opportunities, they are unlimited. But we should not have a technology-centric mindset to starting a business is bound to fail.
So again, it's the problem first, the methods later, is what I hear you say. Right?
Don't be tech-centric.
Don't be tech.
And I come from a community, from a startup community, where everyone's a technophile.
Yeah,
People love, we've gone from IoT to metaverse to different tech stack solutions, etc. And when something comes, people just want to implement it. But rarely have I seen this work outside of use cases. If designers are building businesses, their businesses should also be human-centric.
So we're moving back to the philosophy of human-centered design enabled by technology, right? And using newest technologies that come out there. But I would say it's all the buzz around AI that's actually exciting the students to look at starting up, which I think is great for our country. 3 mistakes our students shouldn't make in the context of, most of them are about to complete their studies. What opportunities should they look at? What is something, because typically what happens is, in India, we very much, we roti kapra makan, right? As soon as I graduate, I want a job, I want a good job. Here's an opportunity. They've come out with this great thinking, these great skills. The world's their oyster.
Absolutely. And that's very well put. The world is their oyster. Why that is good is, see, the whole point of doing design, I think it's a good question to ask, because I was talking to somebody and that student was talking about the fact that they follow these artists on Instagram and they're doing such amazing work. But they also look at another picture where a lot of people are making money. And what's happened to design as a field has become a very conflicted field. Is it about creating something which is amazingly fulfilling and that's why you did design? Or is it just a commercial field for a better pay package? The moment you're conflicted, it's like 2 horses and you're pulling in a different direction on that, it doesn't lead to good results. So when people come out of design schools, the first question is that design is about exploring yourself. And you're very young right now to say, okay, this is my pay package and I'm set for this, etc. What I did as my education and what I do right now is no connection. Never in my entire career, especially my education and ID, did I ever think I'll be a businessman or I'll be looking at P&L and revenues, etc. Never on that. But that's what happens to exploration and educating yourself along the way. It is going to happen. And they should not take a stake at this game over here that, like you said, roti kapda makan. Fundamentals will come. Because the value of designers have increased, fundamentals will come. But be open to make effort towards going closer to your passion than going towards your money. Because I'm very upfront about this, Siddharth, because if people only think about the fact that what is the commercial viability or what's the package they get after this, they will all end up in UX. And that's a very sad picture for me for India.
That's a very controversial statement, right? So I'm going to let that go. But I think this resonates with Piyush Bansal when he visited us from Lenskart. He said, make meaning, money will follow. Right? And I think that's most successful entrepreneurs and those who have done a number of startups and been successful. I think they follow their passion over the initial money package, right? So I think that's an important. I think in India we're in a great spot where we can take those risks, right? Our students can take those risks. How do you see the global AI revolution and India's role in that? Because obviously we're this, the fastest growing economy. We have the smartest and brightest students, workers, but obviously economic growth, jobs, AI disruptions. What is the differentiating role that we as Indians can play in this?
See, India as an economy has drastically changed over the past 5 to 10 years. And it's because of the rate of innovation which has increased, the rate of funding which has increased, and the amount of people which are trying to come up with differentiated solutions have increased thousandfold.
Yes.
It's a fantastic place to be. In fact, most of my friends which are in some other country, they want to come back, or they're looking at our stories as the story to be. So this is the place to be, I think. So amazing story in that. Now, what is the role in the context of AI, for example? Because the entrepreneurship focus is so strong, the AI adoption as part of startups is also really fast. One of my entrepreneur friends in Gurgaon, he was building some HR software. Within 6 months, he pivoted his softwares to be completely AI focused to deliver the results. 6 months.
6 months. That's it.
That's how agile they are. So it's getting embedded everywhere and everywhere. So AI has become a tool which is given, right? It's like discovering fire. And now it is lighting fire in so many different startups and so much value that the jobs will be created around this. The possibilities will be created around this. And this will require, especially designers, to come up and strategize that how do you create a AI-based HR software and give X kind of experience to the candidates.
Got it.
Such that it converts them.
But just hold on to the fact that the AI revolution is going to create new jobs. Any ideas on what these roles will look like? What are the competencies that they would need? Because that's what the students of today really want to look at moving ahead.
See, there are a lot of guesswork around in terms of what is the
of course it's still
jobs
evolving,
and competency. If like worst case scenario, then AI trainers. See what's happening in Kenya and some villages in India where people are just sitting and actually training AIs for Microsoft, etc. as well. But I typically refrain from making claims in this direction because you don't know. The rate of change is so fast, you don't know what kind of work this will create.
And currently, what are we seeing in terms of AI-enabled workforce?
Smaller company sizes.
Okay.
Smaller company sizes.
But more companies,
More
not
companies.
more companies.
More companies, smaller companies.
Companies, yeah.
Faster. And very soon, I think, single-person companies.
Single-person companies, right? Great. So that actually will give impetus to a lot of entrepreneurship, right?
Correct.
And I think that'll help, the value creation across the ecosystem in India. But Amber, thank you so much for your time. I know you have a flight to catch. I've got you here, but really appreciate the time you spent with us. And I think your words were invaluable for all our students today. Thank you so much.
Likewise,
Thank
Siddharth.
you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.